Hi friends, I'm Max Lucado. Welcome to Fresh Hope. I'm so glad you've joined me. Today we're continuing our series called Facing Your Giants. Perhaps like David, you feel as though you aren't smart enough, strong enough, equipped enough, or holy enough to overcome the challenges in your life. You're about to hear some good news. The same God who helped David will help you. I don't remember much from sixth grade. I don't remember my grades. I don't remember family holiday plans. I can't tell you the name of the brown-haired girl I liked or the principal of the school. But a spring evening in 1967 is crystal clear in my memory. I'm seated in my parents' bedroom. Dinner conversation floats down the hallway. We have guests. But I asked to leave the table. Mom has made pie, but I passed on dessert. Not sociable, no appetite. Who has time for chit-chat or pastry at such a time? I need to focus on the phone. I'd expected the call before the meal. It hadn't come. I'd listened for the ring during the meal. It hadn't rung. Now I'm staring at the phone like a dog at a bone, hoping a Little League coach will tell me I've made his baseball team. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, my glove at my side. I can hear my buddies playing out in the street. I don't care. All that matters is the phone. I want it to ring, but it doesn't. The guests leave. I help clean the dishes. I finish my homework. Dad pats me on the back. Mom says kind words. Bedtime draws near, and the phone never rings. It sits in silence, painful silence. In the great scheme of things, not making a baseball team matters little, but 12-year-olds can't see the great scheme of things, and it was a big deal. And all I could think about was what I would say when schoolmates asked me which team had picked me. You know the feeling. The phone didn't ring for you either. In a much grander scheme of things, it didn't. When you applied for the job or for the club, when you tried to make up or get help, the call never came. You know the pain of a no call. We all do. We've coined phrases for the moment. He was left holding the bag. She was left standing at the altar. They were left out in the cold. Or, my favorite, he's out taking care of the sheep. Such was the case with David. His story begins not on the battlefield with Goliath, but on the ancient hillsides of Israel, as a silver-bearded priest ambles down a narrow trail. A heifer lumbers behind the priest, and Bethlehem lies before him, and anxiety brews within him. Farmers in their fields notice his presence. And those who know his face whisper his name, and those who hear the name turn to stare at his face. Samuel, God's chosen priest, mothered by Hannah, mentored by Eli, called by God. When the sons of Eli turned sour, young Samuel stepped forward. When Israel needed spiritual focus, Samuel provided it. When Israel wanted a king, Samuel anointed one, Saul. Oh, the very name causes Samuel to groan. Saul, tall Saul, strong Saul. The Israelites wanted a king, so we have a king. They wanted a leader, so we have a louse. Samuel glances from side to side, fearful that he may have spoken aloud what he intended only to think. No one hears him. He's safe. As safe as you can be during the reign of a king gone manic. Saul's heart is growing harder, his eyes even wilder. He isn't the king he used to be. In God's eyes, he isn't even king anymore. The Lord says to Samuel, "How long will you continue to feel sorry for Saul? I have rejected him as king of Israel. Fill your container with olive oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse, who lives in Bethlehem, because I have chosen one of his sons to be king." That's in 1 Samuel 16 and verse 1. And so Samuel walks the trail toward Bethlehem. His stomach churns, his thoughts race. It's a hazardous thing to anoint a king when Israel already has one. Yet it's more hazardous to live with no leader in such explosive times. 1000 BC was a bad era for this ramshackle collection of tribes called Israel. Joshua and Moses were history class heroes, but 3 centuries of spiritual winter had frozen people's faith. One writer described the days between Joshua and Samuel with this terse sentence: "In those days, Israel did not have a king, and everyone did what seemed right." Judges 21 and verse 25. Corruption fueled disruption. Immorality sired brutality. The people had demanded a king, but rather than save the ship, Saul had nearly sunk it. Israel's first monarch turned out to be a psychotic blunderer. And then there were the Philistines, a warring, bloodthirsty, giant-breeding people who monopolized iron and blacksmithing. They were grizzlies, and the Hebrews were salmon. Philistines built cities, and the Hebrews huddled in tribes and tents. Philistines forged iron weapons, and Hebrews fought with crude slings and arrows. Philistines thundered in flashing chariots. Israelites retaliated with farm tools and knives. Why, in one battle, the entire Hebrew army owned only 2 swords, one for Saul and one for his son Jonathan. Corruption from within, danger from without. Saul was weak, the nation weaker. What should Samuel have done? What did God do? Well, God did what no one imagined. He issued a surprise invitation to the nobody from Nowheresville. He dispatched Samuel to Red Eye, Minnesota. Not really. He sent the priest to Sawgrass, Mississippi. Not exactly. He gave Samuel a bus ticket to Muleshoe, Texas. Okay, he didn't do that either, but he might as well have. The Bethlehem of Samuel's day equaled the red-eye Sawgrass or Muleshoe of ours, a sleepy village that time had forgotten, nestled in the foothills some 6 miles south of Jerusalem. Bethlehem sat 2,000 feet above the Mediterranean, looking down on gentle green hills that flattened into gaunt, rugged pasture land. Ruth would know this hamlet. Jesus would issue his first cry beneath Bethlehem's sky. But 1,000 years before there will be a babe in a manger, Samuel enters the village pulling a heifer. His arrival turns the heads of the citizens. Prophets don't visit Bethlehem. Has he come to chastise someone or hide somewhere? Neither, the stoop-shouldered priest assures. He has come to sacrifice the animal to God, and he invites the elders and Jesse and his sons to join him. The scene has a dog show feel to it. Jesse parades his boys one at a time, like canines on leashes. Samuel examines them from several angles, more than once ready to give the blue ribbon, but each time God stops him. Eliab, the oldest, seems to be the logical choice. Envision him as the village Casanova, wavy-haired, strong-jawed. He wears tight Wranglers and has a piano keyboard smile. This is the guy, Samuel thinks. Wrong, God says. Abinadab enters as brother and contestant number 2. You'd think a GQ model had just walked in, Italian suit and alligator shoes, jet black oiled back hair. Want a classy king? Well, Abinadab has the bling bling, but God's not into classy. Samuel asks for brother number 3, Shammah. He's bookish, studious, could use a charisma transplant, but busting with brains, has a degree from State University, and his eyes on a postgraduate program in Egypt. Jesse whispers to Samuel, valedictorian of Bethlehem High. Samuel is impressed, but God isn't, and he reminds the priest, God does not see the same way people see. People look at the outside of a person, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. 7 sons pass, 7 sons fail. The procession comes to a halt. Samuel counts the siblings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Jesse, don't you have 8 sons? A similar question caused Cinderella's stepmother to squirm. Jesse likely did the same. Well, I still have the youngest son. He's out taking care of the sheep. That's chapter 16, verse 11. The Hebrew word for youngest son is hakatan. It implies more than age, it suggests rank. The hakatan was more than the youngest brother. He was the little brother, the runt, the hobbit, the baby. Sheep watching fits the family hakatan. Put the boy where he can't cause trouble. Leave him with the woolly heads and open skies. And that's where we find David. In the pasture, with the flock. Scripture dedicates 66 chapters to his story, more than anyone else in the Bible outside of Jesus. The New Testament mentions his name 59 times. He will establish and inhabit the world's most famous city, Jerusalem. The Son of God will be called the Son of David. The greatest psalms will flow from his pen. We'll call him king and warrior and minstrel and giant killer. But today he's not even included in the family meeting. He's just a forgotten, uncredentialed kid forming a menial task in a map-dot town. What caused God to pick David? We want to know. We really want to know. After all, we've walked David's pasture, the pasture of exclusion, and we weary of society's surface level system of being graded according to the inches of our waist, the square footage of our house, the color of our skin, the make of our car, the label of our clothes, the size of our office, the presence of diplomas, the absence of pimples. Don't we weary of such games? Hard work ignored, devotion unrewarded. The boss chooses cleavage over character. The teacher picks pet students instead of prepared ones. Parents show off their favorite sons and leave their runts out in the field. Oh, the Goliath of exclusion. Are you sick of him? Then it's time to quit staring at him. Who cares what he or they think? What matters is what your Maker thinks. The Lord does not see as a man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Those words were written for the hackathons of society, for misfits and outcasts. God uses them all. Moses ran from justice, but God used him. Jonah ran from God, but God used him. Rahab ran a brothel. Samson ran to the wrong woman. Jacob ran in circles. Elijah ran to the mountain. Sarah ran out of hope. Lot ran with the wrong crowd, but God used them all. And David, God saw a teenage boy serving him in the backwoods of Bethlehem at the intersection of boredom and anonymity. And through the voice of a brother, God called, "David, come in. Someone wants to see you." Human eyes saw a gangly teenager enter the house, smelling like sheep and looking like he needed a bath. Yet the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is the one. Chapter 16 and verse 12. God saw what no one else saw, a God-seeking heart. David, for all his foibles, sought God like a lark seeks sunrise. He took after God's heart because he stayed after God's heart. And in the end, that's all God wanted or needed, wants or needs. Others measure your waist size or your wallet, not God. He examines hearts. And when he finds one set on him, he calls it and claims it. By the way, remember how I waited for the phone to ring that night? It never did. But the doorbell did. Long after my hopes were gone and my glove was hung, the doorbell rang. It was the coach. He made it sound as if I were a top choice, and he thought an assistant had phoned me. Only later did I learn the truth. I was the last pick. And save a call from my dad, I might have been left off the team. But Dad called, and the coach came, and I was glad to play. The story of young David assures us of this. Your Father knows your heart. And because he does, he has a place reserved just for you. Yes, our God not only does the improbable, he specializes in doing the impossible.